Bire mazak wurut nogong. Morovia komano tijik ningai.
We are one Guyana, a place of peace, a place of love. We are one Guyana, it's paradise, it's our world.
Good morning. If you're joining the live, we're at the St. Paul's Primary School, where the General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party has come to cast his ballot.
Serial number 248, surname, Rapio, surname, Barra, address, Madam Nico de Mora, occupation, president, identification number 1336113, the record. Agent,
So we're witnessing the General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party, Dr. Barry Jagdeo. He's here at St. Paul's Primary School in Plaisance, in the Sparendam area where he resides, to cast his ballot for this local government elections. For those of you just joining us, we are with our General Secretary and Vice President of Guyana, Dr. Barry Jagdeo.
Okay, thank you. So we should start the voters. Well, as you saw, it's smooth, and so far things seem to be going well across the country. I've had reports all morning. There were slight hiccups, but these are being resolved. One issue has been about the information clerks. Many of them are saying to people, you have to come to me first before you go into the polling place. If people know where they're voting because they've already checked and that they're on the list, then they don't necessarily have to go to every information clerk. So in some polling places, that was becoming an issue because a bottleneck. They have a long line before with the information clerk. And like even here, I see something happening again. People can come straight to the polling place. They're not required to go to the information clerk, only if they need assistance. And so this has been something that we've always had at election time. And sometimes people are misdirected. We've had one instance where a person was told, you're not voting here, you're voting at another place, another location. And then when we checked, their name was on the list at that particular location. So that we brought it to the attention of the officials, some of the presiding officers, the ROs, and it was resolved at the places where those problems occurred.
What are you hearing about voter turnout?
Voter turnout, as expected, would be low. We know that it would be low. We've spoken about this on the campaign. We said the PPP is fighting against complacency, not so much against APNU in many areas. And when you're incumbent, particularly, you get a low turnout. The last elections, the turnout was just around 30% in 2018. And so you would have a low turnout generally across the country, but notwithstanding the low turnout, we do extremely well. PVP, we'd have a landslide victory in most of the, well, a significant number, the majority of the local government areas being contested.
At this stage, do you have a specific forecast for the areas that are traditionally controlled by the opposition, especially the town?
No, APNU is at it now. I saw they had several social media people, some Melly Mel, repeating the lies that they've been telling. And even today, that one that we plan to raise taxes in the city, the fact is that we don't plan to raise rates and taxes in any area across the country controlled by the People's Progressive Party administration or council. The second thing is I think they want Christopher Jones started this thing about the ghetto and the PPP improving these areas, investing in infrastructure and better facilities for the purpose of taking away land from people. All morning I see them busy saying to people in Alboystown and other areas that the boulevard was not for you. It's for the big business community because they'll take away your land and give it to big businessmen to build skyscrapers and do all sorts of things. Another lie because, and it points out to the desperation of APNU. They had to fabricate these lies. The fact of the matter is that those are transported land. They're transported land. We've never, ever, in any part of this country, taken anyone's land because they owed rates and taxes, particularly small people. If anything, the PPP is always sympathetic to small people. The amnesty that APNU gave was not for small individuals in Georgetown. It was for the business community, the amnesty on rates and taxes, and it was a scheme for corruption. I've been on the campaign trail as saying this, that if you owe $50 million in back taxes, and those were the big businesses, you'll pay $2 million to the city council, $2 million to some of the councillors who are arranging the deal for you, and then you got $46 million waived. We know of many such instances. People told us. So APNU had to drive fear because of what's happening in the city. I'm not making predictions. It's up to the voters. We ran a campaign, but one thing we have already proven to this country, clearly, that the only national party, the only multiracial party in this country today is the People's Progressive Party. We have already made that point, proven it tangibly. And you see in the campaign, I heard Norton making excuses this morning. Oh, they had to. I never said we contested in all of the areas around the country. He's lying. He said virtually all of the areas he's contesting in when asked just after nomination day. And then the holder repeated this a week after. They're walking back from that comment. Now he's claiming that, oh, well, we had to focus our limited resources because the PPP is telling people not to give us money. The PPP is not telling people not to make contributions to happen. A lot of people are not making contributions because of what they did in the 5 years. They went after the business community by increasing taxes. They went after the miners, people in the forestry sector, almost every sector of the economy. And people don't have any confidence in them. And so maybe that's why they're not raising resources. And then people don't have confidence that they'll manage the resources well too. Look, you heard what the treasurer said. The treasurer said that he was forced to sign several 20 blank checks at one instance and then leave it with the general secretary of the party. There was no accounting for the funds. When people hear that, why would they even want to give you money? But it had nothing to do with resources. Had nothing to do with resources. It's just their track record. And so you're going to hear all day long some of the rumors about how the PPP wants to throw out vendors, we're taking over land in the city, all of that. You've known us, you've heard these rumors before. And so they're not new. And but, that's it. So we're right across the country. So we're waging a.
Is that you use the state resources to drive your traditional supporters, buying votes, so on.
Yeah, well, it's not a new accusation. It is not a new accusation. APNU has to make excuses for their defeat. Historically, this has been the case.
But the
No. So first of all, the first excuse was we're gerrymandering boundaries. But they made a mistake this time around by going too early to the court. They could have leave that for after the defeat. But the court now said threw out the case, and the country was clear that there has been no gerrymandering of the boundaries because all that we are doing in 95% of the cases was a return to status quo ante, which is the 2016 boundaries. That can change in 2018. That's one. So that excuse has disappeared. But they still repeat it. Then they spoke about the quality of the voters list. They filed a case with the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice had some very harsh words to say about that too. So two excuses disappeared. So now it's about bribing people. They started off by saying we're paying people to wear the red T-shirt. But you've seen the enthusiasm. You've seen the spontaneous support for the People's Progressive Party. You've seen people stood up and explain why. Because they don't trust APNU anymore because of the broken promises. They didn't hide away, cover their faces. Like with an APNU protest, or I saw one with Anok, where four persons hiding their faces like that, or the, again, Glen Lyle type protest. You had people who didn't hide their faces, candidates, Afro-Ghanese candidates, Amerindians, Indian candidates, whatever. They all stood up and proudly spoke about why they're coming to the PPP, why they're supporting the PPP, and why they will not support APNU. Open. So there is no issue of bribery. The thing is that, yes, when you're incumbent, you'd always have the state resources. I have a state vehicle, so when I go to my meetings, I go with a state vehicle. But that has been in the past and now too. APNU, every government uses that sort of thing.
Can I get a photo with you and your thing?
Yes. I know Norton is fearful We're not an arrogant party. It's a huge task to win in an area that is overwhelmingly supportive of APNO historically. But everyone would recognize in this country that we have waged a good battle. And that's what it's about, a challenge. And we still expect a good result. But from the beginning, I'm not one for arrogance and predicting, oh, we'll sweep all seats in Georgetown, etc. The fact is that he had to reiterate that they will win in Georgetown, something that would have been foregone in the past, where nobody would have been unthinkable to even talk about the PPP winning in Georgetown, means that our campaign has had an effect on the city and on Norton himself.
Earlier, the opposition leader would have said that they plan on taking legal action against the government to provide ample subvention to the NDC that they control. Or he said that he will also urge those people in those areas to protest. What do you have to say in response to this?
Well, Norton, it's all about starving the city council. But we saw 5 years of happening. They had a chance to give great subventions to City Hall and to all these bodies across the country. In fact, they got less than we are giving now, subventions. So they do get subventions. So he does. It's it's hard to respond to someone who will lie so blatantly because you were in government, you gave a lower subvention to the city, you spent more on the less on capital budget for the whole country for all of these areas. In the city alone, we've spent over 6 billion on roads. We've made it clear. You saw the Minister of Finance respond to Obraj Narain about the question issues surrounding the financial statements and audited reports. He was lying again. And he pointed out that one of the reasons why we can't pass the money directly through City Hall is because of their lack of accountability. Notwithstanding, they get their subvention and bigger than what they got on the APNU, and they get the rates and taxes paid by the city. They get free electricity because they're supposed to pay for street lights in the city. They owe GPL over $3 billion, and we allow that because we absorb that cost. All the roads in the city are being fixed by the central government. We have invested in moving the garbage disposal facility out of the city. We're putting greater pumping capacity through the city. All of this done by the central government. You ask them what did they do with the rates and taxes they collected. It was all a scam. And they talk about selling out land. They were busy, including Mr. Mentor. I can call his name today. Busy trying to work out deals to sell off all the lands just in the last couple of years. The last 2 years, everything that the city owned. They're talking Georgetown not for sale. Anything that could have been sold, they practically sold off already. So that connotates that they own the city. Yes. Thank you very much. Okay. To be careful, you remember.
He had an injury.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to urge people to think about what the day is, and as we say vote on track record, vote your conscience, and ensure that you don't waste this valuable vote. Thank you very much. Got it? Yeah, I think so. I can promise
So
them
that is the
Wednesday.
General Secretary of the
Yeah, I
People's
think
Progressive
that
Party,
should be
Civic. He would have just cast his ballot at the St. Paul's Primary School here in Sparendam.
what Yeah, you said, yeah. Desperation, scared, yeah. When people are scared, they act like that. They're running all along the place, they're scared. Don't worry, right? Yeah. Those are the video. Yeah. Upload it. All right then. Okay. Are you strong? Don't worry. These things happen to people. Yeah. All right.
And again, if you're just joining the live, Vice President and General Secretary of the People's Progressive Party Civic, Dr. Bharat Jagdeo, would have just cast his ballot here at the St. Paul's Primary School, which is a polling place for the local government elections. And this is in an effort to make change. This is one of the NDCs controlled by the opposition. And he would have made his mark, um, exercise his franchise, if you want to say, in relation to these local government elections. Remember to come out and vote. Polls close at 6 p.m. Uh, walk with your ID and make sure you have um, your ID there, and you can also sign the document. If you don't have your identification card, you can still come out and vote once you go through the process. So that's it for now. Until later. What do you care there? Care. Bye bye, bye bye, baby. Oh no, look, he come there.